Hi, we're Keith and Melissa, Wandering Mr. and Missy.
Hello and welcome to today's podcast. So the other day when you and I were talking about what is going to be the main focus of this podcast, I know we were talking about travel, photography, and also the road less traveled. And then we came across Robert Frost. I should I should know that. That was one of the first poems I think we read in school as a kid. Mm-hmm. The road less traveled, and that got us thinking about people that we know in our lives that have taken, well, there's been a fork in the road, and they've chosen the harder direction.
Again, you assume the harder direction because it's not the direction everybody takes. But sometimes again, until you take that road, you don't know if it's harder or easier because it's less traveled. So.
True. I mean, you're right. It doesn't mean it's more difficult or it's the easier path, but it's probably the path that you were least likely to take based on your current situation.
Right, because most people are going to tell you if you ask for advice, or frequently don't ask for advice, that people are willing to give it to you anyway. They say, well, why would you do that when if you take this path, let's go then...
Life will be easier,
or we know
make more money.
Or we know it will happen. Again, just quick little... I always say quick, but when I decided to be a photographer, that was not my original goal. I was actually in school. I was in college. I was taking pre-med as a major, and I was one class shy of taking the MCATs. And the entire family was super happy and proud. And I'm like, woohoo, Keith's going to be a doctor. And I decided to
burst their bubble.
I decided. I was happier at that moment having taken some classes in photography that I couldn't think about anything else. Like, why would I continue on and do something that I don't want to do anymore as much as something else I did want to do? I was good at medicine, having done it in the Navy and whatnot. And like, okay, doctor seems like a great thing. Everybody's going to love the fact I'm a doctor.
Safe choice.
Blah, blah, blah. Safe choice. I know where the money's coming from, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And so I dropped out of college with one class left to take the MCAT. And everybody thought, you must be on drugs. You gotta be crazy. That's just the dumbest idea I've ever heard, except for one person, and that was my mother.
Oh, thank goodness, right?
My mother's like, okay, does this make you happy? Yeah, that's why I want to do it, because it makes me happy. She says, well, then do it. So I fully support you.
And that's such great advice. I don't want to say most parents don't give, but a lot of parents want, at least I think, want their child to take a more sure path at an earlier point in their lives, just to, I don't know, get them set up for life. But it's nice when, it's great when a parent supports a decision like that, whether it's the right decision or not. But that's a great example, in my opinion, of coming to almost like a fork in the road.
Yeah.
You could have gone left and gone the doctor path, had potentially a successful career, or you choose the photographer path, which probably fulfilled you. Well, we don't know. We don't know if it fulfilled you.
Don't know.
Being a doctor could have been. We won't digress too much on this, but you chose a path that made sense for you at the time, and fast forward all these years, successful photography business for 30 years. We've done very, very well. So it was a path you chose that I always looked at you saying, oh my God, you never work a day in your life. So you opened my eyes up to also choosing different paths. So I don't know what direction we want to go with this, but I think I do want to interject one thing that I want to mention, that we do want to talk about fear, because a lot of times I think fear prevents us from taking a certain path, that even if our heart is in it or emotionally we really want to make that choice, there's something within us that holds us back from making the choice that probably would make us happier.
Well, I think you had you've diverged from the well-worn path a number of times, but how about the time about when you were pregnant and it came to a fork in the road, what you wanted to do? So let's talk about that one.
Well, I mean, I had a job for a very long time, a career in New York City. That's when we met. So 15 or 17 or 18 years I worked for them, and decided, as I was going out on maternity leave, again, having witnessed you enjoying your career as a photographer, and you saying you never worked a day in your life, and I was working 12-hour days, 6 days a week, stressful, being called all the time, and a lot of responsibility, which obviously owning a photography business is a ton of, wasn't trying to get away from responsibility, but at that time in my life, I was ready for a different track, like something that fulfilled me more. It made me happier. So that was definitely one of those, and I don't know, I definitely wasn't afraid. I felt like I was making the right choice, but I think you need something for me. I needed that push, like, okay, it's a clear cut, I'm going out on maternity leave, it's easier for me to separate from this company at that point. So I gave up a career that was lucrative and chose a less certain path, but I was okay with that. Like at that point in my life, I don't know if that would have worked earlier in my life, but at that point in my life, that was a path I was happy. I wasn't afraid at that point. But again, well, there's a couple other things I want to address. There's check boxes in life. I think as children, we're told go to school, which is a good one. You know, you should go to school. To go to college, though, is something that at least
for everybody.
It's not for everybody, but it seems like looking at the student loan debt and stuff like that in the U.S., obviously a lot of people are going to school that maybe shouldn't. Maybe there's another path. I mean, you know, my grandfather was a manual laborer. He had built a very nice life for his family, and now there seems to be a shortage of people who are doing that. Like your uncle was one of your uncles is your uncles chose one a more professional path, and one also a trade that did very, very well. And in this climate, this generation, and our kids' generation, it seems like more kids are being forced to go down that path. And I do want to talk about how we raised our kids to make their choices, but that's a subject for another day. But I think we have checklists. You're supposed to get married. You're supposed to have kids. You're supposed to graduate from college. You're supposed to have that responsible job, like a doctor, a lawyer, something. A lot of people discourage their kids from the creative fields because they're not going to make enough money. And another subject for another day is how do you define happiness? And I think some people, you chose a path that was going to make you a happier person at that time in your life. Now you stayed on that path, but within that path, I'm sure there are other paths you could have taken as a photographer.
Yeah, there's definitely. But again, that's a whole.
Yeah, we had again. This is just we're going to quickly touch on a bunch of things related to fear and making choices, because I do think sometimes when you're making a decision for yourself, especially a big decision like that, I mean, there's a lot of fear that can be wrapped in that. Some people make big decisions without. Well, actually, what's interesting is that we're sitting here, we're living in Paris now. We've made a lot of decisions to get to this spot, which for me, I wasn't afraid to make the decision to move to a foreign country. Yet sitting here right now making this video fills me with more fear than moving my family, my dogs, and everything
exactly.
across the world.
This right here, speaking about fear, than just speaking to a camera.
I'm sweating.
I can speak to a bunch of people out there. I was going to like one-on-one and answer questions with no problem.
Workshops, we talk to groups.
With no problem. For some strange reason, talking to a camera with nobody behind it, even I guess there was somebody behind it, but knowing that there's potentially an unseen audience out there who's going to judge. Yeah, who's going to judge. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. But for some strange reason, it's terrifying, and it's just a chore to get to this point where we're doing this. So
But doesn't that go back to, I think, the reason why when you do have those divergent paths that show up in your life, a lot of people, including us, and a lot of times in my life I've chosen the path that had the least amount of judgment for me. Like, oh my God, what are people going to say? Melissa's doing that. Even when I left, my hometown, who does she think she is? You get those judgments that she thinks she's better than us or whatever it is. But you make that up in your head. No one was saying that. Maybe you guys are going to watch this and think, who are they? Their accents or this, or they're speaking quick or whatever it is. Like maybe we will be judged, but so what?
Yeah, in the end, as you're saying that, of course, I'm thinking back about choosing judgment over whatever. And I think I did the exact opposite. For some strange reason, I seem to have gotten judged a lot early on by everybody but my mom. And I just started to embrace it. I'm like, okay, if that's the path everybody's going to go down, I think I might choose the other one just because it's not the one that my family might want me to go down or everybody wants me to go down. I just seem to naturally be drawn to this other path. For my own weird reasons, I don't know what they are. I can't really describe them. They don't make any sense when you say them out loud, but they've worked for me. Again, everybody's got their own path, and I'm never going to be one to say you should have done this over that. Whatever you choose at the moment that didn't get you hurt, killed, or hurt other people or kill other people, I think is completely a personal choice. And it's got again, we all have to come to our own reflections on that in the end. So
True. And I think
but,
within our own lives or within our own careers, we make choices as well, like
yeah.
that you might question or
Oh, yeah.
wish you had done something different. But I just hearing you talk reminded me, which you told that story the other day about when you were in, was it Miami?
Oh.
This
Yeah.
makes me laugh, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, again, it's probably the scariest moment and most embarrassing moment, all wrapped into one in my lifetime that I haven't somehow blacked out. Yeah, I was a long time ago. I was a model, and I worked for an agency called Wilhelmina back in New York, and they sent me down to Florida to build, down to Miami to build up my book, like they did to a lot of people. So the things that I didn't like I had no problem with modeling because just being on the other side of a camera, 1,000th of a second, 300th, whatever, I felt I could look good for any fraction of any given second. But I hated runway work because that meant I had to walk down and
like
walk back uninterrupted. And there's any moment where if I had, most of those moments are, it's all good. But if I had tripped, if my boots squeaked, or if something happened, everybody would see it and I'd be embarrassed or humiliated. So I figured the longer you, and it was like video too, the longer you watched me, the more likely I was going to do something that I would regret. Whereas any 250th, 1,000th of a second, I could easily look
so
cool.
Still in a magazine,
Yeah,
you're
so
okay with
it's
yeah.
I went on a casting, and also I have an irrational fear of dancing. Because,
that's
yeah.
actually
And so,
that's come together.
and that one's one of those things. Like everybody's going into places and like, oh, well, why would you be afraid of dancing? Everybody loves dance. No one cares. And I always point to somebody in the room and say, look at that guy right there. He doesn't, who's not dancing wrong. Like, he doesn't care. I'm like, I never want to be the guy people are pointing to in the room to be the example of how bad you can be and not care. So I'm like, that never helped me. So I get on this casting and I go into this white room and what do they want? They want me to dance. I'm like, excuse me. I'm like, what? Yeah. So literally I'm in this white, empty, they turn the video camera. Early, somewhere in my early to mid 20s. They turned the record button on. They walked out. Thank God for that, because I might have walked out if they didn't walk out. So, but then I did. I just sat there and I just started with no music. Just started to dance in front of the stupid camera that was staring at me in a blank room, and the entire time I thought my head was going to explode. I'm pretty sure it was I turned on every shade of red, and I don't even know, and I pray that nobody ever watched that thing. But somewhere out there, I'm hoping that somebody had mercy and just erased the thing or burned it. Because this is back before I guess the internet did exist, but it was really fairly new.
Yeah, definitely weren't uploading videos.
Yeah, there was no YouTube, there was no Instagram. If that were the thing, I would probably have resigned and just sat in a corner for the rest of my life.
But what would have happened if they had liked what you had done? Would you have gotten a job that required you to dance?
Somehow I think it's a long time ago, because the details of it outside of this mortifying moment, what's going on, and the fact that it's out there, somebody potentially has this videotape.
Well, if anyone knows.
And I hope, and if you're out there and you're seeing this, then that was me. And please, whatever. Maybe it would be good. Maybe it would be good for me if that got out there and I could just be humiliated, and so I could get past the fact that there's nothing wrong. Nothing bad can happen to me other than I'm a little bit embarrassed. But that's not the worst thing in the world. But if you think about things overcoming, and that was one that I didn't really overcome. But I did fight through it. Like I dance. I don't know if you know who the Elaine dance. Let's go back in Seinfeld.
Although I think everyone watches Seinfeld.
But I think I made Elaine look like a good dancer. So anyway, that's confronting a fear.
Well, it reminds me of this story I've heard many times over, could use the last decade or so, of the Howling dog story or the dog on attack story, where in a neighborhood, I've heard it told multiple ways, but more or less it's the story of somebody hears a dog basically howling or whining because they go over to the owner and say, "Is your dog okay?" Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, he's just sitting on a tack. Well, why doesn't he get off the tack? Well, basically because he's familiar with that pain and he doesn't know what will happen if he gets off the tack. Like, it could be worse. it could be better. But it's a great metaphor for all sorts of things in life, from you taking that chance, with your modeling career, to people being in a relationship where they stay longer than they should because they're not sure, again, to the divergent path, like which one is it easier to stay with someone than it is to leave, or a career that you're unhappy with, a school that's not working out for you. There's a million scenarios where, even in day-to-day life, where it's easier to just, maybe you're in debt, maybe you shop too much, whatever it is, and you just can't change what you're doing, because it's easier to just stay the course than it is to face that fear and figure out why you can't do something about it, or why you don't want to do it's not the right thing, the thing that would make you happier.
Yeah, again,
or help your life.
So sometimes people are unwilling to suffer what they see as a setback, and for a minor discomfort, which would lead to a longer-term gain, versus just staying the course, recognizing it's a slow but inevitable slope downward, versus taking a quick dip and then coming back up the other side stronger. So
like an avoidance tactic.
Yeah, there's a story in the Times I'm not going to get into that I just saw today, which is absolutely tragic. And but it's not. Some influencers that were living a life that they couldn't afford, and it led to absolute tragedy. When all really would have required is to look at the numbers and go, okay, this isn't sustainable. We need to do something different. But no, we'd rather continue on with that, which can't possibly end well.
But it's the fear of having to really face something at the moment versus, like you said, putting it off, and eventually it catches up with you anyway. And that's whether it's a relationship, career, a relationship with your child, a significant other, your boss, whatever that is. And I think, or like I said, I think I'll bring up debt and financial issues, since you just did that I'm bringing it up again. But to pretend something's not happening, because the fear of getting off the tack of actually doing something about it. And so again, we're touching on a myriad of issues right here relating to the divergent path, but really fear is what prevents people from making different choices.
Yep. And again, and fear, we all have fears, because God knows that, but facing them can actually be, it's a challenge. It can be fun, terrifying. Right. But when you learn, if you just make it a game, and find out that almost always, again, except maybe even the fear of fire, people become firemen. Like, nobody wants to run into a fire, but some people do it because even though it's completely against human nature, people run into a fire to save other people.
Someone, yes.
So again, facing fears can have even if it shows you like that, whether you were right. Again, most of the time you're not. Most fears are irrational. Well,
I mean, some are based in, if I had an abusive husband and I was afraid to leave the relationship, then that's based in honest fear. And if I didn't have a job and no money and couldn't support myself, I mean, there's reasons why people are prevented from making an obvious choice. But it also comes from within, and like taking that chance on yourself. And
nothing will change. The one thing you can guarantee is if you don't change something, things aren't going to change. And therefore, if the situation is bad and you don't change it, at best it'll stay bad, but it will likely get worse.
But then you can have situations that are great. Well, bringing us back into the story where, throughout our lives, we're 55 and 56, so we've had a lot of paths to choose to get to this point. And most recently, 2.5 years ago, moving here, we had everything going for us. Like, we had a very busy photography business, too busy probably, which might be why we forced ourselves to choose a path where we were more present with our kids, and kind of thinking in my head, like, they're going to be 18 and gone off to college or off to live their lives, and like, this is the only time, this is what we have, like, let's make the most of the time we have left with them and with our our relationship. And we were just working nonstop, and so you can say that we had everything going right. We had all the boxes checked. You had the house and the dogs and the kids and the career, and everything's going well. But then we put the brakes on it ourselves and said, hey, let's take this path over here because it might change our lifestyle. Like we'll be more present, have more time for family. And while we're never going to give up on photography and travel, that's part of our lives here. It's just we just decided to take that diversion path and move here and recreate our lives.
Yeah, let's not forget the fact also all of our friends are back in the U.S. So it's not so not only do we toss out that, but we have to. We again, the family's farther away, and have to make a whole new set. Well, again,
and it's not tossing it out because the friends we had understood, and they're like, "Oh, good for you guys."
Yeah, it's not that we don't talk to them; that they're not our friends anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's just the idea that they're an ocean away and a continent.
And then people say, "Well, why would you do that? Like everything was going great. I mean, your life was perfect." But for me, and I don't know how you feel about this. I've never asked you directly like this. It's almost like I was sitting on attack. I wasn't, nothing, sorry if I made a sound, nothing bad was happening, but I felt like what was bad that was happening is we're working too much. Like we're chasing this, dream, this American dream that merry-go-round that you can't get off of it until you just get off of it. So I think I was sitting on that tack personally where I'm like, wow, like we have to slow this down. Like we have to live, and not as we say in France here, it's the live to work, work to live. The U.S. and France they approach life a little bit differently.
Pretty much opposite.
So the fact that we recognize that, we're not getting any younger, our kids are going to be leaving soon. Let's just take this path down because it makes sense for our family.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, sometimes you just
people think we're crazy, and
sometimes you're just resting on your laurels and what you're doing, the choosing success as it's
the definition.
as it's defined by others. Don't let other people define your success. It's only yours. So.
And I'll just throw it in
because they don't live your happiness, and they also don't live, don't live your misery. So since they don't actually live in your shoes at all, define your life by your own criteria.
Yeah, and it's by no means a complaint. We have wonderful people that we left behind. We had a wonderful career owning several photography businesses, and honestly, photography and us working hard allowed us all of these opportunities. Right. So it was strategic, and it wasn't just throw our hands up in the air and we're out of here. It was, we did have a dream board. We did have Paris on it for 10 years or so. I don't remember. I do have the dream board though. One day I'll break it out and look, I think I put a date on it. But we did start visualizing things and creating a plan, not knowing when, but we planted the seed so whatever fear we had to face became so much easier, because when you decide on that outcome that you want, I think it became easier because we just started making, at first I think just mentally, but then physically by writing it down, what are the steps to do this? So it became a lot less fearful when A, you've made the decision, B, you put a date on it, and C, you start working towards that. And that included working a lot harder with our business to make sure that, we were in a position that we were able to do this without any problem financially. So with no help from anyone else, this was done, through our businesses. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because while there certainly could be a lot of fear attached to that path, once we kind of decided that we were going to do it, I think we buried a lot of the fears because we addressed every concern that we had, turned them into action steps, basically. Any objection became a step for us to create this reality for ourselves.
Yeah, it worked, and we're here, and now it's...
And
now we have a whole other chapter to write. But this is, again, I always like to say life is just a bunch of stories. So you want the stories to be interesting, and we want this to be kind of like in the Star Wars, the Dune trilogy, or whatever your favorite series of movies or books are. I suppose why just have the one? Again, sequels don't always work, but you never know until you make it. So let's just keep writing until we choose to stop.
That sounds good to me. And I again touched on a few things, and we plan on touching on a few more.
This is very a surface scratch.
Well, we appreciate you stopping by, and we definitely plan on. I want to have. Good dialogue and guests, and I think we
have actually an interview that we did with a person who we both felt had a very good story about taking the road less traveled, had a different original outlook in life diverged and is a very successful travel photographer, Mount Dutile. So stay tuned for what I think was a really good interview.
Fantastic. And I think that's this community that we actually want to build. We want to talk to not like-minded people to us, because it doesn't have to be about travel or photography or moving to Paris. I mean, this is about making choices that work for you as a person, as an individual, as a family, and putting the fear aside or working through the fear and finding using the challenges to realize it for yourself.
And again, the overall arc of this will be the road less traveled. So David Frost, thank you.
Exactly. And I will post that. I think it'd be a good idea to probably post. Actually, the poem was longer than I remembered. So
because people only remember the little end, the end of it. I took the road less traveled.
Exactly.
Versus,
and what that even meant to him, we're not sure. But I will post the full poem so that you can see the inspiration for us doing this, because this is something, like we said, this is what we're afraid of, right? This is our fear, sitting here right now doing this. So right now, we'll put our money where our mouth is, literally, or our mouth anyway. Well, anyway, see you next week, or see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye.